This lecture is going to be on an introduction to sodium and chloride. Sodium and chloride are acquired through the diet, as most foods have ample amounts of sodium and chloride to meet the body's needs. Sodium is primarily located within the extracellular fluid due to the action of the sodium-potassium pump. Since chloride follows sodium in order to maintain electroneutrality, chloride is also at higher concentrations outside of the cell relative to inside of the cell. Sodium and chloride are effective osmoles, meaning that they are osmotically active and contribute to the osmotic pressure. In health, sodium and chloride regulation by the kidney is primarily dependent on four things. First, the majority of sodium and chloride is resorbed by the proximal convoluted tubule. So, if there is a decreased number of functioning tubules, such as in renal insufficiency, then there aren't enough functioning tubules to resorb sodium and chloride from the ultrafiltrate, and then sodium and chloride can be lost in the urine. Secondly, the amount of sodium and chloride that is resorbed from the ultrafiltrate depends on the flow rate of sodium and chloride through the tubule. If it's a slow flow rate, then there's lots of time for sodium and chloride resorption. If it's a fast flow rate, then there's not that much time for sodium and chloride resorption, and sodium and chloride can end up in the urine. The two hormones aldosterone and ADH also regulate sodium, chloride, and water dynamics in the kidney, and those two hormones will be further discussed on the next slide. Sodium and water resorption by the kidney is dependent upon blood osmolality and blood volume. Osmolality is primarily dependent on the plasma's sodium and chloride concentration. Typically, if there's hypernatremia, then there's hyperosmolality. If there's hyponatremia, then there's hypoosmolality. Hyperosmolality results in various physiologic responses, including stimulation of the thirst center in the brain to intake more water, and it also causes the release of a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. This is also known as vasopressin, and this hormone is released from the pituitary. ADH then travels to the kidney, and it acts on the epithelial cells of the collecting duct to increase pure water resorption. This is the hormone that is inhibited by alcohol, and alcohol's inhibition of ADH is why restrooms and alleyways see a lot of action on Friday nights. When the body senses a decreased blood volume, then aldosterone is secreted from the adrenal cortex, and aldosterone acts on the collecting duct tubules to resorb sodium, chloride, and water, and excrete potassium and hydrogen. Aldosterone secretion is also stimulated by hyperkalemia and acidosis, and that's why there's concurrent potassium and hydrogen excretion. So please, please, please remember the difference between ADH and aldosterone. Students often confuse these two hormones with one another, but it is important to understand the differences between these two hormones.